Hey guys, this is Danny Boy. This time around we have the Hurricane. The Hurricane is an extremely rapid fire weapon. It is one of the fastest firing weapons in the game. It also does better than average damage for an SMG, and it also weighs quite a bit for an SMG. Not a lot compared to other weapons, but more for an SMG. So just to compare it to the Shuriken as a baseline, you can see it has an insane rate of fire, better than average damage, so on. Oops. Let us quickly demonstrate it. So, point blank range, fired from the hip, firing in bursts, and now full auto. Weapon does have massive kick, so that's something to keep in mind. So point blank range, I would definitely, looking at this, just go full auto on the head. Let's look at short range. Thing really uses ammo up incredibly rapidly. And 40 shots in the magazine, it really doesn't go very far considering how fast it fires. But at short range, I would probably just go full auto on center mass, maybe work your way up to the head, but overall just stick to center mass. I wouldn't bother bursting at this range, at least not from the hip. Let us move on to mid-range. You can see we're getting quite the spread here. So, bursting does not seem to be effective, nor really is full auto. Even mid-range is really going beyond this weapon's effective range. I would say at mid-range you might again just kind of want to go full auto on the center and maybe work your way up to the head, but overall really not good results, I would say. Let us check out mid to long range from the hip. Really tough to deal with that recoil at this range. We're definitely beyond this weapon's effective range at this point. Pretty terrible results for either burst fire or full auto. Let's move on to long range. Imagine this weapon would be pretty cool with marksman. That is hard to deal with. Okay. Moving right along. Very poor. From the hip, really, even mid-range is pushing it on this weapon. I would fire full auto at point blank, aim for the head from the hip. Short range, I would aim for center mass. And mid-range, I don't know if I'd really bother from the hip anymore. Not really worth it. At least not outside of cover. So, and again guys, apologies that I can't really show off cover. But no cover in here, so ah well. Let's now see how the sights affect things. It actually makes it more difficult really to deal with the recoil. But again, I would just go full auto on the head at point blank range with the sights, but I would just as soon do it from the hip myself. It's kind of hard to deal with the recoil with the sights. At least this close. Good results either way, but I would full auto the head at point blank. Let us see short. Short, I think I would just work my way up to the head. But let us see. Yeah, again, I would just, at short range, go full auto, aim for center mass, work your way up to the head, but really focus more on the center, on the torso. First was pretty poor. Let us see mid-range. Let us see if the sights significantly improve mid-range, because that's really where things started to go downhill. That is hard to deal with. Alright, let's see what we got. Bursts are pretty good. Yeah, I would say sights definitely improve this weapon's effective range. Definitely a lot better than firing from the hip at mid-range. I would probably either just burst center mass or full auto center mass. Now, we used a lot more shots here than we did here overall, and this weapon is not the most efficient weapon in the world in terms of how rapidly it uses up ammunition. So I'm not really sure what you would do in this situation. Maybe exercise trigger discipline at mid-range and just aim for center mass and conserve ammo, or go all out in full auto to burst a target down faster. I guess that really depends on the situation. Both seem to be pretty effective. Let's move on to mid to long range. Recoil is definitely a significant problem at this point. Unfortunately, mid to long range really seems to be beyond our grasp still. I do not think I would bother, just like the hip, but sights definitely improve its range at mid significantly, but mid to long still doesn't really seem to be happening. But let us try long for the hell of it. For the halibut. Should be good enough. Yeah, that's just not happening. The recoil is too intense. Poor. So all the sights really allow you to do is get more shots on target at mid-range. Still just either bursting center mass or full autoing center mass. But beyond that, it's really the same rules as from the hip. You really can't fire this weapon beyond mid-range. Mid-range is definitely a lot better with the sights, but you still aren't increasing your effective range from mid to long or long. Let us now try out a scope. So scoped, point blank range. Oh, that's hard to compensate for. Scope really makes it hard to counteract the recoil at short range. Yeah, that's rough. So, exactly the same as from the hip or from the sights, just full auto the head. That's what I would do myself. Alright. Short range. Not liking the scope so far. It's really hard to push down with the scope. It seems harder than just the hip or the sights even. But, I don't know, maybe we're getting more accurate headshots at short range. But that was a lot of ammo. I'm not sure that if that's really a huge improvement over just the sights. I'd still probably just, excuse me, work my way up from the torso for the most part. Not mid-range. Oh, that's miserable. Again, really not seeing a huge improvement over the sights, and the recoil is just so terrible to deal with. It's so miserable to deal with. I just don't know. Not really feeling the scope. Don't really see it as a huge improvement. Maybe for burst fire, but really, it just sucks to deal with for full auto. Let's see if it's increasing our effective range, though. This is now mid to long range. Oy vey. Yeah, that sucks. Do not like that at all. Not really. I mean, maybe, again, with burst fire. Not really seeing it with full auto. So all I can really say about the scope is... But we'll still test long range. If you want to use this weapon at longer ranges in burst, maybe it's worth it. But it really makes it harder to use it at shorter ranges, where it really does shine. This is not a long-range SMG. That's damn near impossible right there. Yeah, not happening, not trying, just enough. Again, more accurate in our burst fire, though. So, scope is pretty much the same as sights in terms of point blank or short range or mid range. At mid to long and long, it allows you to get more shots in bursts, more shots on target. So I guess I would aim for center mass and fire in bursts at mid to long range or long range, but only really with a scope. Anything else, and you're just not going to hit. But the scope, again, really makes it harder to aim at shorter ranges. So from the hip, I would just fire full auto at the head at point blank range. I would fire center mass at short range. Beyond that, I wouldn't bother. With the sights, same deal, just aim for the head at point blank, go full auto. At short range, you know, you can get headshots more accurately, but I would still probably just aim center mass and work your way up. But if you want to get headshots, you can go for it. At mid-range, I would definitely just aim for center mass, focus on that for the most part. And mid to long and long with just the sights, I wouldn't bother. And again, I just went over the scope. So thanks guys for watching, stay tuned for more, and have a